seconds. Good evening, and thank you for taking time to join Cub Scout Pack 414 to remember September 11, 2001. And to those also expressing our appreciation to the many men and women who continue to protect our freedom today. We thank you for your understanding that this year, the 10th anniversary event is virtual and is being live streamed at all the Scouts as well as the bannering community. Related to that, we would like to thank the James City County Police Chief Ryan Ash for offering up his services of the JCC media team. Those physically present here will see Mitchell and John walking around this event with cameras so that viewers at home can watch this event. Finally, we regret that many of our older veterans, as well as our own scouts and elected officials, are not here tonight. Scouts, advance. Halt. Post the colors. Scout salute. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Military members and first responders in uniform should render salute, and those not in uniform should remove their hats and place their hands over their heart. Scouts will do the scout salute when told to. This year, the Star Spangled Banner will be led by Les Cayan, who is a singer with the choir at St. Olaf Catholic Church in Norwich, Virginia. Les himself is retired from the U.S. Army, is a Vietnam War veteran, a West Point graduate, and has served 2 tours in Iraq from 2008 to 2011.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, Les. Now our Cub Scouts will recite the Scout Law.
Scout is trustworthy,
Loyal,
helpful,
friendly,
courteous,
kind,
obedient,
faithful,
brave,
plain,
reverent.
My name is Chief Warrant Officer Aaron Harrison. I'm from the United States Army. I'm a father of a Cub Scout, Ava, and a Boy Scout, Aiden, and I'm the Assistant Cub Master for PAC Cub Scout 414. I retired from the Army in November 2013 as an aviation maintenance manager, and I was on active duty station at Fort Hood, Texas, 19 years ago when our nation was attacked by terrorists on a horrific day in 2001. At the hands of hijackers, 2 planes hit the World Trade Center in New York City. A 3rd plane crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and a 4th plane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. I can remember very well, immediately, our base was locked down, and we tirelessly prepared ourselves to go to war in the coming months and years. I'm extremely honored to serve as the Master of the Ceremony for this time of remembrance. We would like to take a moment to pay tribute to our honored guests in attendance today. The members you see to the right or left represent the many police officers, firefighters, emergency medical technicians, and military members who answered the call on September the 11th. I'm happy to see that many of you also joined us this evening here in our audience and streaming online. A special poem will now be read by Christopher Lampett.
Thank you for being our heroes and friends, having the courage to make us secure. A child needs someone attentive and strong to nearby to be certain that nothing is wrong. Kids can get frightened and like to be sure. You are the saviors, unselfish and pure. On whom our bright vision of fortune depends, unstained as the innocent hope of our song.
Thank you, Christopher. I would now like to introduce you to our Cub Master, Mr. Dan Gasink.
Good evening. My name is Dan Gasink, Cub Master of PAC 414, which is chartered through our Savior's Lutheran Church here in Tuano. Our Cub Scout PAC begins this year with about 70 boys and girls going from kindergarten to 5th grade. We have 22 volunteer parents who give their time and effort to help. As parents and as Scout leaders, we provide a safe and fun program for these Cub Scouts. Scouting has 4 aims: character development, leadership, citizenship training, and personal fitness. In keeping with the first 3 of those goals, at the 10-year anniversary of the September 11th attacks, our PAC created and dedicated a small memorial garden right here in front of the fire station. Since that time, our PAC maintains that garden year-round, and every year for the past decade, we have gathered here for the ceremony of remembrance. We thank you for joining us in remembrance of that fateful September day, And we thank the James City Bruton Volunteer Fire Department for allowing us to use their station and being so helpful with the ceremony. We adults certainly remember that bright morning of Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. My scouts here, however, were born between 2009 and 2015. They have no memory of that day. And so we hold this annual memorial both for us to remember and for us to share our memories with the next generation. Scouts, I'd like to explain to you what happened, why it's important, and why we want to honor that day and why we never want to forget. On the morning of Tuesday, September 11th, it was a beautiful blue sky. 16 bad guys in 4 teams took over passenger airplanes and turned them into weapons by crashing them into buildings. 2 planes ran into the World Trade Center towers in New York. 1 plane crashed into the Pentagon in Alexandria, Arlington. Ordinary people on the 4th plane fought to control the plane from the bad guys, and that plane ended up crashing in a field in Pennsylvania. That day in New York, first responders rushed to the scene. Firefighters, police, Port Authority ran into burning skyscrapers to help those inside. The fires got so hot that they caused the building to collapse. Many people were caught inside the buildings and out front as the buildings fell down with a force like a bomb. We hold this memorial every year to honor the first responders who rushed in, tried to help, and many never made it back home. There were 343 New York City firefighters, 23 New York police officers, and 37 Port Authority officers who didn't make it home. After that attack, everything in America stopped. That morning, that afternoon, the next week, we knew we had been attacked, and we were probably going to war. But at the time, we didn't even know who attacked us. We were at home, glued to our television, watching. We were afraid, and we didn't know what would happen next. We felt unsafe in a way we never had before. We didn't know how to get back to our normal lives. But we knew we had to, even though we were confused, afraid, and mourning together. When I was your age in school, I heard my parents talk about the assassination of President Kennedy. Heard my grandparents talk about the attack at Pearl Harbor. And I never understood what they were talking about until we felt the collective shock and sadness and trauma of the September attacks. Every one of us who lived through that time feel a great sadness. It's hard to describe, but it makes us want to seek the support of friends and loved ones, and we are all cheered that you're here with us today and at home. That day started a chain of events that has led our service members into active duty around the world for 2 decades. We stand here today to honor the service and sacrifice of our first responders and service members. Some of you may wonder why we want to remember an event and a day so terrible. In part, we're here to honor the dead. In part, we're here to honor the living who risked themselves to help. Partially, we're here just to mourn together. And part of it is to teach everyone, including you scouts, the importance of resilience, of getting back on your feet after you get knocked down. We remember and honor the first responders and service members and how they honored the virtues that compose our scout law. We here as scouts stand in reverent remembrance. We choose to be cheerful when others might despair. We are loyal in time of crisis. We're helpful to people who need our assistance. And we are brave enough to do our duty, even when we're very scared. You scouts are now living through another epical time. Epical is a big word that means a change that will define a whole age. Your children will never believe that you lived in a time when global disease rocked the world, that you weren't allowed to visit your grandparents, your sports and activities all got canceled, and even your schools were flat out closed. You'll tell them about this and how you adapted to live your life despite this. Therefore, we will never forget those who died as a result of the attacks of September 11th, 2001. We look to the fire, police, paramedics, medical staff, and members of our military, but also to our teachers, fellow scouts, citizens, neighbors, and moms and dads who respond in time of need. As all Scouts do, we will honor the living and those who gave their lives by doing their best and being prepared for what happens next. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I would like to now introduce the James City County Bruton Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief Philip Murdoch to give his words of honor and thanks.
Good evening. My name is Philip Murdoch, and I am the chief here at the James City Bruton Volunteer Fire Department. And on behalf of our department, we want to welcome you here into our station this evening. It's an honor. It truly is an honor to be here with you. I want to thank the members of Troop 414. I want to thank you for what you are doing today, but also thank you for all that you've done over the last 9 years. I remember receiving the phone call and the request to put the monument out front to remember 9/11. And I appreciate so much the fact that you did not just build that monument and forget about it or leave it, but every year you come out and you tend to it and you make sure that it looks beautiful. And for that, we thank you. This evening I want to just take a moment to remember the events of 9/11. When the events of 9/11 took place, I had only been a firefighter for 1 year. I was working in the city of Martinsville in Southwest Virginia. I clearly remember all of that morning, seeing the events take place on the television screen, my phone starting to ring. I can remember trying to make phone calls, and they wouldn't go through because the phone lines were so congested with people trying to make phone calls to their family members. The rest of that day, we were all glued to our television sets. Every channel, whether it was weather or ESPN or whatever it might be, was showing news footage of what had taken place that day. I had no idea when I went to bed that night how the events that had unfolded that day had changed the world I live in forever. This evening, as we come together here in the station and online, we have parents, we have grandparents, grandchildren, children, nieces, nephews. And each and every generation will or has experienced a moment in time when the world changed seismically and changed forever. I think again, as your scoutmaster said, to my grandparents as they talked about Pearl Harbor and World War II. I think about my own parents as they talked about things like the Kennedy assassination or Apollo 13. For me, that day was 9/11. For those of you that are a bit younger, one day you will tell stories of a worldwide pandemic when school was out for months and months and everything changed. And though those events are very different and they span generations, they do have some similarities. In each of those moments, we find heroes. Average, ordinary, everyday people who stepped up and answered the call. In the midst of a challenge, in the midst of danger and chaos, they answered the call to serve. Whether it was the men and women who contributed to the war effort in World War II, whether it was astronauts who rode rockets into space as we raced to the moon, whether it was firefighters or police officers or other workers who went into burning buildings or 9/11, or even today, doctors and nurses and grocery store workers and scientists and biologists and, yes, our teachers who serve us, each of us, during this pandemic. I have 2 boys. They're 9 and 11 years old. And as they have gotten older, I've had the opportunity to share with them more and more of the events that took place on 9/11. In fact, this week we sat in the living room and watched a television show as we learned more about it. And I've had the opportunity to share with them the stories of bravery that took place that day. But not just that day, but even in the weeks and the months that followed, as we learned about the story of Pat Tillman, who left the NFL to serve our country. And today I want to share with you, these scouts that are here, as well as those who are watching online, what I share with my boys this week. I believe that the single greatest way that we can honor these heroes is to learn from them and to follow their lead. Parades and ceremonies, television shows and monuments, they're great and they're absolutely appropriate. However, I believe the greatest way we can honor those who died, those heroes of 9/11, is to follow their lead. Now, for those of you that are scouts here or firefighters or service members, perhaps you will have a moment in your life where you can step up and follow the lead, and many will see your actions. Perhaps you will do something so extraordinary that it gets the attention of those on Twitter, Facebook, social media, television, and everywhere else. Perhaps the stage will be so large and the eyes so many, everyone will know your name. However, what is much more likely is that there will be moments when few will be watching, that you will get little to no recognition on social media. But I still want to encourage you to follow the lead of those who answer the call on 9/11. Whether many know or only those that you help and you know. How can you do that? It doesn't have to be an extraordinary event. You can sit with and be friends with that person who's being bullied or picked on in your school, whether even virtually. You can be there for those who maybe are lonely or sad or scared. You can help your neighbor by cutting grass or take someone a meal who's hungry or just simply compliment someone. Share with them a kind word. I tell my boys all the time, we live in a complicated world. And there are plenty of people in this world who unfortunately are mean and do bad things. But I want to encourage you, the scouts and the rest of us here, to be the good. So today we remember that horrible day, but we don't remember just the bad. We also remember the good. We remember the heroes and we follow their lead. And I want to encourage you to continue to do that, whether on display for the world or only a few. Let us follow their lead and let us be the good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Murdoch. We will begin a time of our remembrance with a fire service tradition that dates back to the mid-1800s. Long before radios, pagers, and fire alarms, daily announcements were sent from the headquarters to the firehouses by a system of bells, commands, and telegraphs. When a firefighter died in the line of duty, headquarters would transmit 5 bell strikes, repeating in 4 series. This custom has continued through the years and to this day. This is a form of rendering final honors to departed comrades. In the fire service, this is known as striking the 4 5s. Please remain silent in respect as John Gasink strikes the 4 5s in honor of those who have lost their lives in the line of duty. Thank you, John. Then we come to a solemn portion of our ceremony, the placing of the flowers of remembrance. The roses are in remembrance of those who perished on September 11, 2001, and for those in uniform who have lost their lives in the war on terrorism. Ava Hairston will be placing the wreath in remembrance of the fallen, with accomplishment provided by the Williamsburg Pipes and Drums. Please remain silent as the flowers are being presented. – 9/11. For years, those numbers simply meant a call for help. Now, they also remember us as September 11, 2001, the date of the worst terrorist attack on the United States of America, and one of the deadliest days ever on American soil. As a special honor, a memory poem will be now read by Bobby Gasink.
A scout is reverent. May all of us remember with love and compassion this day. May we grieve with those who still mourn and share memories with those who cannot forget. May we draw strength from those who bravely responded and gave their lives to save others. May we stand with strangers who became neighbors that day and remember with their generosity and hospitality. Above all, God, may we remember your faithfulness and learn to trust in your unfailing love.
Thank you, Bobby. Taps. Taps will be sounded by the bugler from Troop 414, John Bascom. Taps is a simple 24-note melody, 150 years old, which can express our gratitude when words fail. Taps honors the men and women who have laid down their lives and paid the ultimate sacrifice for the cause of freedom. On behalf of PAC 414 and the men and women here this evening, we sincerely thank you, as well as those joining us online and here in the audience, for all that you have done and continue to do for our communities and our country on a daily basis. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.